So for anybody who didn't happen to tune in yesterday, Brooke did my vendor interview and now I'm doing hers, and we happen to be very good friends, and we met through spinning probably 14, 15 years ago, and we're both on the board. So this is kind of fun that we get to interview each other. So with that, I am going to make Brooke larger on screen and we'll start our official interview. So
Hi.
Welcome. We have here Brooke of Sincere Sheep, who does beautiful hand-dyed yarns, and she's based in Napa, California. And Brooke, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
So before I get started, I have two adolescent cats, black cats. So I can't, and they are hilarious, but they're kind of out of control. They're in that sort of like spaz phase of being cats or kittens. So it's entirely possible that there may be black cat intervention at some point. So I'm just warning you in case things go a little haywire, that may be what's going on. Anyway, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Again, I'm Brooke Sinnis of Sincere Sheep, and it's really fun to be here in this role instead of being here as a, I don't know, board member, I guess. I started my business, I think now 17 years ago. And my focus is on, I sort of have a dual focus, which is natural dyes. So everything that I dye is with natural dyes. So with plants and bugs. And then also now basically all of my bases are domestically sourced and spun. Sometimes there's some silk or that isn't obviously from the US, but primarily everything that I'm using for my yarn bases and the fiber that I sell, all, like I said, domestically sourced and spun. It's often single origin, so from one ranch or farm, and breed specific. So, and I try and put all of that information on the label as much as possible. So, those are sort of my dual focuses. I have custom spun bases, and also I buy yarns from other producers and mills that they make, and they're kind of their house yarns, and do that as a way to support them as well. So those are some of sort of the tenets of my business. I think that if you know me, you probably know my Cormo yarn. It actually comes in 4 weights, though, and fingering. So fingering and sport, and then I have worsted, and I have lace. And actually this year, my fiber is at the mill right now, and we're going to do a small run of bulky. So that'll be out hopefully by the end of the year. It kind of depends on when we get the yarn back from the mill. So we'll see. And this Cormo yarn is custom spun for me. So the only other person that has this base is Jean DeCoster of Elemental FX. She and I, this is a project that she and I do together. And so we, it's a way, like, we've been friends for a long time, and I sort of convinced her to do this project with me. And so the thing that's really neat about it is that she does synthetic dyes and I do natural dyes. So you get like this whole wide palette, and it's all on the same base. So that if you want to make a project, you can combine our 2 yarns, and they will work seamlessly together. So that's kind of neat. So this is my one of my custom bases. Another one of my custom bases is Covet, and it is 60% Wakaya alpaca. I'm sorry, it's 60% Rambouillet. It's not that much alpaca. Let me just slow down here. It's 60% Rambouillet wool from Marysville, California, and then it's 25% Wakaya alpaca from Marin, California. And then it has a little bit of silk. It has 15% silk. And this is kind of a DK worsted, light worsted weight. And so this is, it's all, except for the silk, it's California fibers. And then this happens to be spun in New York. So those are kind of, and then I have one other custom base that I didn't grab, which is called Favor. And that is kind of cool because it's a merino that's a colored merino blended with sort of fawn white alpaca. And that is an Aran weight, and it's beautiful. So that's really neat. I like playing around with colored wools and overdying them when I can. So like the covet comes in both a white base and a gray base, and I overdye both. So it makes really rich and interesting colors. But mostly you can see that I do tonal solids. You know, that's kind of my jam. I think that these are really wearable, and they are just kind of a perennial favorite. But I do some gradients. So this is the Cormo fingering in a gradient. I have a friend here in Napa, and she makes the blanks for me. And then I dye them. So that's kind of fun. And then recently I've started doing the sort of natural dye version of speckles. And so I did a club that was speckled focused only. So that was kind of fun. So sometimes I will do like little special runs of speckled, like the naturally dyed version of speckled yarn, because I can't quite do the same things with natural dyes that you can do with synthetics. So I've been having fun playing around with that. And then I just wanted to say, I do fiber as well. I don't actually dye fiber that often, but what I do is I buy like individual fleeces and have them processed at Morro Bay, Morro Fleece Works in Morro Bay, California, by Sherry. And so these are the two most recent ones that I got back, and I haven't even listed these yet, so you guys are seeing these first. This one is 60% Romney wool. I bought this last year actually at Lambtown from Ace in the Hole Ranch, and it's 60% Romney and then 40% Surrey. And Sherry actually raises the Surreys, so I bought the Surrey from her, the Surrey alpaca. And then this one is from Red Creek Ranch, and it's 60%. It's kind of an interesting crossbreed sheep, and it's 60% Merino, Cormo, Wensleydale cross. Sheep's name is Luna, and then 25% alpaca and 15% silk. So these are two fun new blends that are going to go into the shop just later today. And I have other ones, and so those are all like super hyper local. They oftentimes are just one fleece. If I have the name of the sheep, I put it on there. But I also wanted to say, if you've never tried my yarns and you are curious, I have an option for you to get. You can try it by getting little 20-yard mini skeins, and you can get all of them. You can get one of them, whatever you want. So those are up on the website, and because I know that, you know, if you're not familiar with my yarns, and especially right now because you can't see them in person, sometimes it can be a little intimidating to shop online. So this can be a great way to experience the different bases that I have, especially considering that they're custom bases, so you might not have ever tried them before. And then new, I literally just put these up on the website. I have color cards. So these are very pleasing to me. And, you know, they have the different colors that I dye. So this can be a great anecdote to having to shop online and having a hard time seeing like what the colors look like. So that's kind of fun. So those are up there now too. This is a long time coming. These are a lot of work. And then I just wanted to show the another thing that I do that is not yarn and fiber related, but I think is really fun, is I work with an illustrator. Her name is Maya Robinson, and I met her through a friend, virtually met her through a friend a few years ago, and she started doing illustrations for me of sheep and other fiber animals. And so we've done this whole line of drawstring bags like this, and you know, so obviously this is llama, not a sheep, but here you go. This is one of them. So I have all of the different images on these little drawstring bags, and these are cotton. They're actually organic cotton. And of course my cat is now sitting on this, excuse me. And we also do the bigger tote bags that have more images. So those are kind of fun too. And like I said, they're organic cotton, and the illustrations are by Maya Robinson. So I just wanted to share those with you too. And the last thing that I'm going to share with you before I let Kira ask me some questions is that I do a yearly club called Made Here Yarn Club, and we are just opening up signups again for next year. So I haven't actually announced it generally. I only told current club members that it's up, and because it's really limited, because it's a very high touch club for us in-house. And So we really limit the spots. So it's actually up on the website now, but I have not generally announced it. So if you guys want to get in and get your spot, you can. It's up there. And this is a quarterly club, and it's all featuring yarn that's made here in the United States. It's kind of a mix of yarns that I dye regularly, and then what I do is I source special yarns that have a story behind them, and I tell you the story, and I show you the dyes that I use in the dye process, and then I go and find extras, like really cool extra goodies. There's often like last year there was a bowl from Stacy Stanhope. She's in Maine, and she's one of my favorite vendors at Rhinebeck. And so I asked her to make a bunch of bowls for my members that all had her incredible sheep illustrations on them. And, bags, I've had, bags made by Maria of A Needle Runs Through It, who's local to us, and also like stitch markers that she makes and other goodies. I always try and find neat things to share with my club members that they're going to enjoy using and are really well made, and then tell the stories behind the people that I'm working with. So that is up there, even though it's technically not quite open to the public, but you could go and check that out. And it's a big support, not only to me, but all the people that I include in the club. It's a really nice way to, support all those makers, and also the mills that make the yarn, and the farmers that we're buying the wool from. It's a huge deal. So I just thought I would point that out, since it's kind of a sneaky peek that you get to even see that it's listed. So I don't know, what else should I talk about, Kira?
Yeah, so I did put a link in the chat just to Brooke's website in general, which is sinceresheep.com, and also specifically to the club section. And I saw there are a couple of clubs open, including the Made Here coming up. And everyone that I know who signed up for that loves it and keeps signing up year after year, because it's just so special, and things that you can't necessarily find on your own.
Well, and the thing that I forgot to mention too, because this is amazing, is that also I managed to rope in different designers, and so they'll provide a code for everybody in the club so that they can buy a pattern from the featured designer. So that's another thing that you get every quarter as well.
Mm-hmm. So I've got a couple of questions from the Q&A. If anyone has a question for Brooke, you can put it into the Q&A as well. And then depending on time, I've got some questions for me. So Beth is wondering, what is the shawl behind you?
This one?
I don't know. Yes.
What is that?
I mean, is that one or the one underneath? Either one.
So what is this, Kira?
So Brooke and I collaborate a lot. That's my pattern called the Cellular Shawl that was designed earlier this year.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's done in her Cormo Sport. Yep. And I have to say, I've worked with Brooke's yarns a lot, and her Cormo line is just amazing. And I think that's because she has designed the yarn. She, has chosen which wool to use, and then works with the mill to have it spun and plied and finished to her specifications. And it's just some of the best yarn I've ever used. I love that they're 4 weights and now a 5th weight coming out. And they're all really adaptable. So the lovely thing with the little mini skeins that you have for samples is that people can try it. Because I had a sweater on yesterday that was the Cormo fingering, but it's a sport weight pattern, and it totally works because it blooms to fill in the space, but it also can squish in if you put it on a smaller needle. So they're really adaptable for gauge.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the pattern available, it's amazing. You can go Kira K Designs, and so she's got a link on her website, and then also you can also look up Kira on Ravelry. So
yeah, and on the Lambtown app, I have a little deal there too, so that's a good place to navigate from.
That's right.
So I've got another question here. What compelled you to do natural dyeing, and kind of keep your focus on local collaborations? And I'll even add to that, like, why is it important for you to name the farm and to name the mill?
So can I take 2 hours to answer that question?
You got a few minutes.
Okay. So as it turns out, the person that I was learning how to spin from was a natural dyer. So when I started learning to spin and I fell into that deep, dark rabbit hole of love of fiber arts in general, I also started taking any class that she was teaching. And so I started taking all the natural dye class. And so I've been a natural dyer from the very beginning. And what I love about it is that it's really, natural dyeing is a challenge, but it's also really engaging. And when I teach, because I do teach dyeing classes, both with you, Kira, and at stores and sometimes guilds, what I jokingly say that we could create like a Tinder profile for each of the dyes, because each dye has its own personality and it has its own likes and dislikes. Whereas with synthetics, they are designed to work the same way and be as consistent as possible. And natural dyes have their own personalities. So it's, you have to learn through experience and through trial and error and through research what they like and what they don't like. And you put that in combination with your own, what you bring to the table as a dyer. Also your water is a huge factor in dyeing, and then other factors like pH and time and heat. And so you bring all of those different factors into play when you're dyeing with natural dyes. And I find that really engaging. It can also be incredibly frustrating, but I think that keeps it interesting. And that's why I've been doing this for 17 years and why I want to keep doing it. And the other piece of it is that through natural dyes, I would say, stepping back, is that a big part of my business is about connection. And so it's connection with people, it's connection with place, and it's connection through time, like both going back in history and going forward. And so, and using natural dyes is a huge factor in that, because up until about 1860, we only used natural dyes. We all used natural dyes around the world. And it was both hyper local, but also trade was obviously happening. I mean, that when to say that like, Christopher Columbus was looking for spices is really quite incorrect. He was actually looking for spices and dyes. And dyes have played a huge part in terms of economics and power and wealth, and both positive and negative, in terms of suppression of local populations by people who are coming in and colonizing, and but also reclamation of identity and discovery of history. And so I find that incredibly rich to learn more about and to just contemplate as I'm working and dyeing yarn. And then also you have the ability to explore your own local environment through natural dyes. So you can create a record of your garden or your walk throughout the year and year after year, and do it in this hyper visual and tactile way through natural dyeing, and keep a record of it if you so desire. That can be your study, that can be your form of natural dyeing. So it's so rich. And then just additionally, just I love the colors that are produced. I think that they're incredibly wearable. They work really well in color work in terms of like, you don't have to worry so much about clashing. And so I think that it's kind of all of those factors that make it really rich. And in terms of why using domestically sourced and spun yarns and fibers is because I once had somebody kind of not laugh at me, but like kind of chuckle and say, there's a lot of altruism at the core of your business. And I kind of stepped back and I was like, oh, you're right. And actually I'm okay with that. I'm very okay with that. And so, and it was because we were talking about the fact that the reason why I use domestically sourced and spun fibers, even though they're more expensive and can be sometimes harder to source, is because I know that through my purchases that I'm directly helping people. And so I'm going to farms and buying wool. I have longtime relationships and friendships with people that I buy wool from. And I also know that they can come to me and they can say, hey, I have all of this wool, I have this extra, do you have any interest in it? And I can say, let me find a place, let me find a way to use that. And know that I can help them and use my business as a way to help them. And then, and in turn, they've taught me immeasurable amounts about, sheep and sheep raising, farming, ranching, breeding, all of that. And so it's very much a two-way street. And then the other piece of it is obviously milling. So we here in the United States barely have a textile industry anymore. In the 80s, over 80% of our textile industry disappeared through going offshore. So I feel like it's really important for me to use my business as a way to support the mills that are here and the mills that are coming back, and the textile industry that is coming back. I think that those are really important and valuable jobs. And so, and I believe in walking the talk. And so I put my money where my mouth is by buying local fibers and local yarns and having them made. And yeah, I do buy from Lonnie Estel of Lonnie's Lana. She's one of the people that I buy yarn from every year. And that extends also, like I said, with the club and the products that I have in my business. Those I think very carefully about who I'm working with, and I make sure that their values are in alignment with mine, and that I'm working to promote people who are doing wonderful things out there.
So Brooke, I'm going to pause you just for a second because we are at the end of your time, but I don't see Bay Horse Yarns here yet. So if Pam or someone else from Bay Horse Yarn is here, please let me know in the chat or the Q&A or by changing your name to say Bay Horse Yarns -Pam. If not, then I think we'll just keep going on a little bit longer with Brooke.
Oh, wait, no, she's here. She says, I am here. So I will cede my time.
There we go.
Yes.
We had two Pamelas, so I did not know.
No, that's always hard when you multiple of one name. I was struggling with that yesterday too. Thank you so much, Kira, for interviewing me and switching roles with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was fun.